Listen, you better grab yourself a snack, something to drink, because we're in for a long wrap-up. Hello friends, I'm Rosa, welcome. So it's time for my March reading wrap-up. I read, I think 11 books throughout March, about 5,000 pages. Not my best reading month, but also I don't think it's the worst one either. About half of these, 5 out of 11, are read on Kindle, so I won't have physical copies of them, but we're gonna be talking about all of them. You better get settled. I don't know how to talk about books like quickly, so it's probably gonna be a bit of a longer video, but I'll try to make it short. I'll try. I'll do my best. I'll probably fail. Let's get started. The first book that I want to talk about is my book club's primary pick for March, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. If you want to check out the book club, by the way, there will always be a link to it in the pinned comments down below. I do spoilery vlogs on the primary pick of the month, so for last month it was Truly Devious. This is a young adult murder mystery with a little bit of a thriller vibe to it as well. It definitely reads as the first one in a trilogy because it had a little bit of a slow start. But in this, we follow our lead girl, whose name I've forgotten. Stevie. Her name is Stevie. Stevie has a set of parents that suck. By the way, important thing to note, I hate them. But Stevie has been accepted into a very prestigious school that is called the Ellingham Academy. And this is no coincidence because Stevie is very into true crime. Like, she's almost obsessively into it. And at Ellingham Academy, the founder, whose name is Albert, his wife and also his kid, whose name is Alice, went missing. So this happened in like the 1930s, and essentially Stevie is here to kind of sort out what happened, to figure out what happened with everyone. Albert also is dead, so that's a thing. At the school, she also has some friends that all have different personalities, all have different like focuses. For example, her two closest friends are very into, one of them is very into robotics and the other one is a writer actually. So they all like, all the kids have different like focuses and stuff. It's kind of funny seeing how different they are from each other. Like, they're very much individuals but they come together still and, you know, make friendships and stuff. But like I said, this definitely reads as the first one in a trilogy. There's a lot of setting up to do, a lot of plot to start out, also a lot of history to explain, and of course a lot of characters to get to know and like first impressions and all of that. So was a little bit on the slower side. However, I really want to read the second because it does pick up. I'm not gonna say, but it does pick up. So I had a really good time with this. I think I gave it like a 4 out of 5 or something, just because it was a little bit on the slower side, but I really did enjoy it. So I'm happy that the book club ended up going for this one because it was a good time. Of course, I had to sneeze right as I started recording, which means I'm gonna have a sniffly nose the entire, or like a runny nose the entire video. Great! Anyway, moving on. Next up is The Gilded Ones. I almost called it The Merciless Ones, but that's the sequel. The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. This is young adult fantasy, magic, creatures. I feel like, but this is just a personal thing, I don't actually think I'm right about this, but I do feel like there's a little bit of like a sci-fi, at least inspiration to it. I don't want to say why because plot, but it's just a vibe that I got. A little bit of romance in there as well, and of course friendships. But in this book we follow our lead girl who has to go through a ritual at her village that all girls have to go through eventually. Basically to see if their blood runs red, so they're human, or if it runs gold, which means that they're demons. And at this ritual, her blood actually ends up running gold. So she is taken off by these strangers and brought to the emperor to essentially form like an elite squad of girl warriors, girls whose blood also ran gold at this ceremony or ritual, whatever you want to call it. While they're at this place where they're all being trained and stuff, secrets start to unravel and I don't know, stuff. I read this during my 24-hour readathon and I read it as the last book, and I feel like you shouldn't do that because there's a lot of stuff in this one. It's very original. So that's the word I'm going to choose to go with. And originality to me can often end up being a little bit confusing because it's original. You've not really come across it before. So this was definitely, for a very sleep deprived brain, was very, very difficult to understand. But I enjoyed it still. I think I mainly got it. I think it's also for me personally, maybe it's a bit of like a word thing or like a language thing, but it was a very enjoyable read. The pacing was very nice. I don't feel like there was too much fluff in it either, as far as I remember, and I really enjoyed like having things unraveled in this world as I read the book, so it was really cool in that way. Also definitely gave me feminist vibes because these girls are badasses, and yeah. The sequel, The Merciless Ones, is coming out here in May, which I'm definitely gonna pick up because I enjoyed this. I hope that the second one also has sprayed edges because that is so cute. Love that. Like, more paperbacks need sprayed edges. It just looks great. But don't do it too often still, because it still has to be special, you know? There's a fine line. But anyway, I think I ended up giving this around 4. I don't remember. Maybe a little bit more than 4. Let's just say that. It's fine. If you're curious, by the way, I always, or at least I try to, rate my books over on Goodreads, so you can find a link to my profile in the pinned comment as well. You can add me as a friend or just follow me, whatever you want to. But I give them a little bit more of like a more precise score over there, and also add an extra couple of comments now and then too, so whenever I remember at least. Sometimes I may have missed it, especially on sequels. Okay, where's my phone? I always keep a list of all the books that I read throughout the month on my phone, so here we go. One that I read on Kindle is also one that I read during my 24-hour readathon, is The Match by Sarah Adams. This is an adult contemporary romance, straight up just like adult contemporary romance. And in this book, we follow our lead girl, or woman, who runs, or not, she doesn't run it, but she works for a company, a very small company, that matches service dogs with customers. So one day she has an appointment with a little girl and her dad to basically set the girl up with a service dog. But when she shows up, it actually turns out that the daughter has kind of set this up without consulting with her dad. He doesn't know. So she's kind of just like tricked him into going. And that means that the dad is not very nice to our lead woman once she arrives there. They kind of get off on the wrong foot. He's, however, very taken with her and can't stop thinking about her. And eventually they do meet up again to try and set the daughter up with a service dog. It's also worth mentioning that our lead woman and also the daughter both have epilepsy. So they kind of, like the woman, our lead woman kind of connects with the daughter in a different way as well. So she was very like set on making sure that the dad knew about the benefits of having a service dog for his daughter. So, and yeah, this was cute. I really liked it. I enjoyed the two dogs' presence quite a lot. The dogs are so adorable. There were a couple of things with this book that that were a little bit annoying to me, or more specifically one thing. So I have talked about this before on the channel, I think, but I have a thing with the whole like, and I think this is a common thing as well to feel, but whenever authors include something like, oh, she's not like the other girls, or in this case, like the other women, I get super annoyed because women come in many different flavors. I hope that didn't sound weird. We come in many different shapes and sizes, we have different hobbies, different interests, we eat different things, we look different. So you can't just say like, this is how regular women are, and then there's this woman. And also because it's often set up like, regular women do this thing that just sucks, but this woman is amazing because she does it differently. I hate that. I really don't like that. And as far as I remember, there were at least 3 cases of our lead guy thinking like that about this woman. One of them especially was like, I don't want to get too into it, but it has something about the way that she was positioned on a lounge chair, and I'm like, really? Her position on a lounge chair? You're gonna be like, well, other women don't sit like that. Other women care so much about the way that their waist looks when they're lying on a lounge chair, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that none of my friends care. But anyway, so that annoys me. Don't do that. Women are very, very different, and you cannot generalize a whole group like that and then bring them down just to make this person better. That's weird. I don't like that. I don't approve of it. Other than that, it was super cute. I laughed and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, but it definitely, the whole, she's not like other women, definitely dragged it down a little bit for me because I just don't like that. So, but that was The Match by Sarah Adams. Then during my 24-hour readathon, I also read The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen, and eventually I also read The Traitor Queen, which is the sequel. I don't know if these can stand on their own. Okay. That's cool. These are new adult fantasy romance, politics, I want to say, and ooh, enemies to lovers. Yes, those kinds of vibes. In this book, we follow Lara, who is a badass. Like, she's a badass female character. I love her. Anyway, she's throughout her life been trained to be an assassin, basically. Or not an assassin, but she's very good at killing. She's been trained in killing in different ways, along with her sisters as well. And the whole purpose of training Lara and her sisters to be these like killing machines essentially is that one of them is going to be married off to the king of the Bridge Kingdom and basically bring this kingdom to its knees, because Lara is a princess along with her sisters, and their father, therefore the king, really wants to be able to control this bridge that runs through the Bridge Kingdom because it gives like very advantageous trading stuff. I don't know how to explain this. It's very advantageous to be in power, in control of this bridge, and like control what goes through it, control the north base and the south base and everything. There's like trade markets and stuff. This is what I mean by politics. Anyway. So that's what this book is about. Lara is sent off to marry Aaron, who is the king of the Bridge Kingdom, and am I gonna say any more than that? I don't think so. Except that Lara also begins to question where the true evil resides, because they've always been told that the king of the Bridge Kingdom is evil and like a monster, basically. I like how on the back here it says, what if you fell in love with the one person you'd sworn to destroy, because that pretty much sums up this book. It's very much a fantasy romance. I will say that there's a lot of action besides that, so it's not just like the romance is a big part of the plot, of course, but there's also other stuff going on. It's very, very action-packed. And Lara is, if you've read Throne of Glass, she's giving me Selena vibes, and I love that. I also read Throne of Glass recently. The last 4 books finally got them read, or I finally read them, however you want to put that. And I have been in a bit of a, whenever I think back on those books, I always get sad because I can't read them again for the first time, and I just love the characters, I love the story. So it's really nice to come across a character that has a little bit of like Selena vibes to her, as in Lara is trained to kill and she's not necessarily the nicest person either. Like she's most definitely not. She's flawed as well. She's not perfect in any way. So I really enjoyed these two. I think the first one more than the second one, but I will highly recommend reading both of them. There's also a third one coming out in May, I think it is, which is called The Inadequate Heir, and it follows 2 characters that you are introduced to in The Traitor Queen, just in case you're wondering. So I'm gonna get my hands on that because I need to know. I need to read about them. I really enjoyed these books. If you are a fan of Throne of Glass or ACOTAR, that kind of vibe, I would highly recommend looking into these books because, yes. Also, just like a little bit of steam. Like a little bit. Like a smudge. A smudge of steam. A smudge of smut. Anyway, moving on. Ooh, speaking of Sarah J. Maas, I'm gonna talk about this one because I need to not save this for last, because then I'll talk about it for like 10 minutes and we can't have that. But I finally read A House of Sky and Breath. Why did I call it A House of Sky and Breath? It's just called House of Sky and Breath. Anyway, this is the sequel to House of Earth and Blood. It's the second book in the Crescent City series. I have no idea how many books it's gonna be. I know the third one is coming out next week. Why is there fluff on my book? Okay, bye. And if tapping is an indicator of how much I love this book, then I feel like this should say a lot. Listen, Sarah J. Maas. Okay, we're gonna go on a bit of a rant again. I don't have any other Sarah J. Maas books to read in the near future, so this will be the last time I mention her for a while. I promise. But for some reason, Sarah J. Maas's writing just vibes with me on a whole different level. Like no other author's writing has done the same, captivated me the same way. House of Sky and Breath and also House of Earth and Blood are a little bit different from her others. So Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, because it's urban fantasy, it's a little bit more modern, if you will. And that includes the language and just like stuff around the people, because the other two are a little bit more, oh my gosh, I had the word and then I lost it. It's just a little bit more modern, but it's still so freaking good. I don't want to say anything that could spoil the first one for you, so I can't really talk about what happens in this one, but for the first book at least, we follow Bryce Quinlan, who is a demi-fae, so she's half human, half fae. She's French? Oh, she's not. She's friends with this group of wolves. When I say friends, I mean like best friends. They're each other's lives, basically. They live together in Crescent City and they're just family, essentially. But then one day she comes home from going out and finds them dead in her apartment. The guy they suspect to have done these murders, murdered her friends, is thrown into prison, but 2 years while he's still in prison, the murders pick up again, and Bryce is kind of like thrown into the investigation. She has to work alongside a fallen angel called Hunt to sort out what happened, and it's a bit of a murder mystery, and there's politics and romance and a bit of like a reluctant enemies to lovers. I don't really know. I don't know how to label them, but I love them as like a couple, if you will. As a ship. Let's call it a ship. The Crescent City series is filled with characters that I love. A lot of male characters. Like a lot of... there's barely any female characters, but lots and lots of love for these characters. It gets even better in this one. We meet more of them, and some of the ones that we meet throughout House of Earth and Blood are built a little bit like we figure out more about them. We we learn more about them, and oh my gosh, I'm gonna stop myself because I really don't want to spoil anything for anyone that has not read this yet. I already did that with Kim because I thought she'd read it and I hate myself for it. I'm so sorry, Kim. But if you love Sarah J. Maas's works, you need to read this right now, is all I'm gonna say. It's very, very good. The ending had me speechless. Actually, no, the ending had me yelling out loud in my apartment at 3:30 a.m. because I was so shook. So this pretty much ended up being a 5-star for me because I want to reread these 2 books again. Like, yes. Honestly, it makes me want to reread all her stuff, maybe except from Throne of Glass because I literally just read them, but I am willing to go back into Ekotar, all 5 books it is, I think. I'm not gonna do it, but I'm tempted to. But this was so good. If you have been kind of putting it off, it's also a thick one, it's 800 pages. If you've been putting it off, don't do that. Go read it. Go read it. So next up, I want to talk about The Ivory Key by Akshaya Raman, which is a young adult fantasy, bit of an adventure with a little bit of romance in it and also magic. This book is about 4 siblings that are estranged. One is what was the term? She's not the queen. Maharani. So she's, yeah, Maharani of this queendom, empire. Let's call it an empire. One is like a scholar type of person at this palace that they live at. One basically lives among thieves, and one is in the dungeons. So they don't talk to each other, they're estranged, their relationships are not good. But in this empire, magic is running out because it's kind of different. Magic is something that you can find in like mines. It's mined and then woven into objects, if you will. But they're running out of this magical source, so they don't have anything to weave into objects. And the only way to solve this problem is for our Maharani to go find the Ivory Key. So to do this, she basically goes on this adventure with her 3 siblings. They all have different things to gain from collecting this key or from finding it. And she also brings along her guard. And that is basically what this is about. The only thing for me with this book was that it took way too long. I think it's a duology, so I will keep that in mind. But it took way too long to actually get to the adventure part because a lot of the stuff, like for the first half of the book, they were just at the palace going back and forth between characters, and I feel like that's a little bit of a shame. Like the pacing was off. As soon as they were out the door, pacing was good, there was action, stuff went down, a lot of magic, you know, sibling banter, or not necessarily like banter in that way, but at least siblings trying to get along and all that stuff, I suppose. It just took a little bit too long to get there, so that was a bit of a shame. But other than that, I did enjoy it. I like the writing style. I did have a little bit of a, for me, because there are like 4 different points of views in this book, points of views have to make sense for there to be 4 of them. It's like Realm Breaker, where there was like 7 or something, and they would just kind of swap at random times, even though all the characters were gathered, they were together at the same spot. Suddenly you'd be reading from a different point of view. That happened a little bit in this one as well, and that kind of throws me off, so that was a bit of a shame too. But we'll also keep in mind that this is Akshaya Raman's first book. It's her debut, so with that in mind, I think I ended up giving it a 3.4 because it did feel very original, and as soon as we were out from the palace, you know, pacing was good again and everything, so. And also the twists and the turns. I'm looking forward to the sequel coming out at some point, which I think should be at the end of the year, or maybe, no, the start of next year or something, so. And then the last 4 books that I want to talk about, I all read on Kindle. So, first one being The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This is an adult contemporary romance. We follow, I forgot her name, but she is basically like a personal assistant of the Wall of Winnipeg, whose name I also forgot, but it's like a nickname for this. I think he does American football. I think that's what he does. Isn't it? Wait. Yes, National Football Organization. So he does football. Our lead girl has been wanting to quit for a while though, because this guy that she works for, the Wall of Winnipeg, sucks as an employer. Like, he's not nice at all. He's just rude. Like, he doesn't say much. He doesn't know how to say good morning. He doesn't say thank you ever. He's just he takes her for granted. So she's been wanting to quit and she decides to do so. However, randomly, this guy just shows up at her apartment and is like, I need you to come back and work for me. And she's like, no, because I have other things to do. And he's like, no, but you need to come back and work for me. I'm not taking no for an answer. So come work for me. Like, he's still being pretty rude about it. But our girl is like, no, not happening. Until he explains his situation and is basically like, you're the only one who can help me, so I need you to come back and work for me. And she's like, well, I don't know what to do now. So that's the whole thing. I don't want to say too much about this little deal, but just know that there's fake dating involved. It's a trope I love, so I have to mention it. Overall, Mariana Zapata is like slow burn queen. So this is another one of those slow burn situations. It's very, very good. It's very charming. It's definitely one of the funnier books that I've read of hers. It has a bit of, I read from Lukov with Love this month. I'll talk about that in my next wrap up, but it has those vibes. So it's like funny and charming, but still has those slow burn vibes that I just, yes, want from Mariana Zapata books. It's not like rom-com vibes, but it almost feels like a realistic retelling of a romance story, like something that could happen in real life, because it's just on the border too unrealistic. I think it's the way that it's written. I don't know how else to explain it. It just feels like something that could actually happen in real life. That's how it's written. Yeah. But this book had me laughing out loud in my living room when I was reading it. I enjoyed it so much. Definitely do keep in mind that it is an adult. Not that there's like a lot of smut throughout it, but we have but we have language and a little bit of smut, and you know, just keep that in mind if you decide to go into it. But I found the characters very lovable. Mariana Zapata also often does grumpy sunshine, which is definitely represented in this one, with her obviously being the sunshine, even though she's not necessarily happy all the time. And him definitely being the grumpy one, because he's like rude. he's just rude. But this was a very, very good book. I think I ended up giving like a 4.4 or something like that. It was very, very good. And then I also decided to read All Roads Lead Here, also by Mariana Zapata. This one is also an adult contemporary romance. It's about our lead girl who moves from somewhere to this small town where there's a lot of like hiking routes nearby. She actually grew up in this town that she moved to. Her mother also passed away in this town, so it's very important for her to go back, and there's a whole thing there. But she's more or less like fleeing her existence in this big city where she lived in, where she worked in the music industry. She was also married but not married to a guy who also works in the music industry. There's a whole thing there. But she ends up in this little town, village, whatever you want to call it, where online she found out that she could rent this apartment above a garage from a man. So she shows up at this house, she sees the man, and he's like, what are you doing in my house? And she's like, well, I already paid you for the apartment above your garage. And he's like, no, you didn't, go away. I imagine he has a very deep voice, but I don't know how else to do it, so just bear with me for a second. And she's like, no, I definitely paid for your apartment, so I hope it's okay that I stay there. And suddenly the man's little boy, his son, peeks out with his head and is like, uh-oh. Because as it turns out, it's actually the son who rented her the apartment. So that's the whole thing. She gets to stay though, it's all good, and she also, you know, finds this man the father to be very, very attractive. So that's all I'm gonna say. I think I might have like almost said too much, but I don't know. That's all within the first like 2 chapters or something anyway, so I think we should be good. This one though was a little, like, this is not my favorite Mariana Zapata book that I've read. I think it's actually my least favorite one. It was still good, it just wasn't on par with the others. Mainly The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and also From Look Up With Love. It was cute, but I didn't feel the same kind of chemistry between the 2 characters. I do prefer when there's a little bit of humor involved as well. Not necessarily rom-com levels, like I said before, but still like a little bit. And there wasn't the same amount in this one as there was in The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. It's a little bit more on the serious side, which is also okay for some books. Like Colleen Hoover books don't necessarily have a lot of humor in them, but I enjoy them a lot too. But I think for something like a slow burn romance with Grumpy Sunshine, I just personally need a little bit of humor in them. This one does touch on loss of family though, so that is the whole thing, something to keep in mind. But I think I ended up giving this like a 3.8 or a 7 or something like that. Around that amount of stars. I still enjoyed it, just not on par with the other ones that I've read. So, and then 2 more. So I read a book called The Flatshare by Beth O'Leary, which is a rom-com, adult still. It has a very funny premise. So we follow 2 characters. One is a girl, another one is a guy. The guy has an apartment that he basically wants to rent out like part-time. It only has 1 bedroom. There's only 1 bed in the apartment, hence the flat share. I don't remember exactly how it's split up, but it's something like she can be there from Monday to Friday at a certain time or something like that, and then he can be there during the day or something. So like she can sleep there Monday, Tuesday, so on and so on, but he has to be there on his own during the day or something like that. It's very odd. The specifics are a little bit blurry. But anyway, so she's looking for a very cheap place to rent, and she's like, this seems perfect for me. Sure, it's a little bit weird, we have to share a bed technically, but I can live with it. It's fine. For this price, I won't say no. So they end up basically sharing this apartment and also the bed without being there at the same time. I know. Are you confused? And it's very charming to see their relationship kind of evolve through post-its, because he's in a relationship when she moves into the apartment, and his girlfriend is not very supportive of his decision to find a flatmate. So they're not allowed to talk to each other. The only way they can communicate is through post-its or like notes, stuff like that. And it was just very, I don't know, it's just very enjoyable. So I had a very fun time with this one. I will say it's definitely, we have a few trigger warnings that maybe you should look up on, but I feel like that's, always look up on trigger warnings if there's anything, you know, that affects you in any way. Definitely look them up. There's just a couple for this one specifically that comes to mind, like assault, for example. But it was just, I don't know, I had a really good time with this one. I think I ended up giving it like a 4 stars because it was very charming. It was very charming to read. And also, I liked, especially, I'm not usually one to like comment on the way that stuff is written, but Beth O'Leary wrote these 2 characters in a very different way, so like you would never have an issue figuring out whose chapter you were reading when you were reading it, because they were talking so differently. One is very ranty when they talk, and the other one is very like short sentences and doesn't even say I and stuff like that. So that was fun, because I don't think I've come across something like that in any of my books before. It was very fascinating to read like that. But yeah, that was The Flatshare. My voice kind of gone weird, but I've also been sitting here for like an hour, so oops. I did say this video wasn't gonna turn like work. I did say it was gonna be a long one. I warned you. Luckily, the last book is To Love Jason Thorn by Ella Maas. This I kind of picked on a whim, to be honest, because it's on Kindle Unlimited and I just felt like reading something adult contemporary romance. It's about a girl who has had a crush, or more or less has been in love with her brother's best friend since she was like 6 or 7 or something. As an adult, she writes books, or she's written one that has been published and has been like a major success. And he, as an adult, is an actor, so he actually ends up being the actor chosen to be the lead role in her book's movie. And then there's something about a deal as well. I will say there's some fake dating in this one. I don't know how much I want to say though, because I feel like a lot of the stuff you're introduced to very late in the book, or not necessarily very late, but at least like too many chapters into it for me to feel like it wouldn't be spoiling it. But there is fake dating involved. For this one, I did enjoy it. I just The lead character was a little bit too immature at times for me. I can't really pinpoint why though. I think it was the way that she was talking in the book, and that's why I can't pinpoint it because I don't fully remember. I just remember thinking that she was a little bit too immature for my liking sometimes. I believe she's in her mid-20s, so it's not like, you know. But the relationship between the two is very charming. It's nice to see it kind of evolve and that whole thing. I will say though, it's very like not much happening like smut-wise until suddenly it feels like you're reading a whole different book. So that's something to keep in mind. I did not know, but suddenly it was like 3 chapters in a row was basically just that, and I'm like, okay, you can like calm it down now. I've had my, it's fine. I've had my fix. Move on. I just want to know what happens in the story now. And there was also a very questionable smut scene that I'm not gonna talk about, but if you have triggers, definitely look it up. I don't want to say what it is because I feel like it would be a spoiler. So yeah, and so for that one I did feel a little bit weird about it. I think I ended up giving it 3.7 or 3.8 because of it mainly, but I did have a good time reading it. It was fun, it was charming, just a little bit of an immature lead character, and she's also very stuck on this guy. Like, but maybe that's just because it's unrelatable for me. I don't understand how you can be stuck on the same dude for like 17 years. When you start out as a kid, it's fine if you're married, that's not what I mean, but like as a kid going through teen years still thinking about the same guy. I don't know. I'm sure that it's happened to some people, just not me. So I can't fully relate to it, but enjoyable nonetheless. Very cute story. And I think that is pretty much it. I feel like I had to rush through the last 4, but we did it. 11 books read. I'll try to make the next reading wrap up a little bit shorter, but it probably won't happen, so you've been warned. You can find links to all of these books in the description down below, both to Book Depository but also, or on Book Depository, but also on US Amazon. I always leave them down below along with author names and also genres and all of that, so if you're curious about any of that, definitely check it out. Like I said, if you want to check out the book club, you can do that by clicking on the link in the pinned comment. And also, if you want to follow me on Goodreads or add me as a friend, you can also do that by clicking on the link in the pinned comment to Goodreads. So, but that is all I got today. So I hope you enjoyed this reading wrap up, even though it's a very long one. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to stop talking. I'm gonna quit it down though, I swear. So if you enjoyed the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to hang out with me and everyone in the comments, nerd out and talk about books, definitely consider hitting the subscribe button. But that is all I got today. So I hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!